EDC meeting. So with a quorum here, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Economic Development Committee, Friday, August 19th at 8:19 in the morning. I'm just going to do a roll call of members as I see them on the screen. Chris Robbins.
Here.
Karen Anglem.
Here.
Yeah. Julie Connolly.
Here.
Michael Moorhead.
Here.
Rob Anderson here. So we do have a quorum of the EDC. I wanted to, as a first item, welcome Karen to the EDC. I think it's imperative to municipal government that we have volunteers who are willing to step up and join committees to better the quality of life for all residents. So Karen, maybe if you want to take a minute and just introduce yourself, kind of what interested you in the EDC and just kind of what you hope to gain from it.
Sure. I've been a resident in town for 22 years now, I guess. And I've always volunteered on sports, Girl Scouts, all that kind of stuff. And as my kids are getting older, I found the volunteer opportunities are dwindling. And so I had more time and I really wanted to become more involved in more of the business and other aspects of town. I am a realtor with Keller Williams. So some of the, interest of new business coming in, could we also attract new members to our town, So yeah, it's a little bit about me. I have 2 kids, 12 and 15.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And there's definitely an intersection between business and housing opportunities. Particularly a diversity of housing type. That's not only the single family homes, but perhaps some more multifamily as well. And I did want to just notice that our committee member, Matt Berger, has joined us as well. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Good. Sorry for being late.
Oh, no worries. As I had said at the beginning, this is a Friday in the summer. I'm going to try to keep the agenda as efficient as possible. However, there are some things like the approval of minutes from May, which are important for us. So I just wanted to start off with the discussion items about our coordinator update. I do know that the town has posted the job for Marika. Vanessa Hale has gotten in touch with the EDC and let us know that there are some candidates, and they were wondering if the EDC did want to participate in some of those interviews. I said, yes, we would, as obviously dependent upon people's calendars. As the chair and vice chair, I talked with Alan, and we're going to try our best to do that. But if there's anyone else on the committee who would like to volunteer in our stead, if someone said, no, this is really important to me as a committee member, I'd like to be involved, please let me know. If not, what I would just do is when I hear from Vanessa about an interview, I'd send an email out to the committee, let people know. Alan and I would take that unless someone on the committee wanted to volunteer. Any questions on that?
Just quick questions. One, are their interviews going to be in person, I assume?
I'm hoping they're going to be, but I have yet to get an email from Vanessa about when those have been scheduled.
Okay. And I'm happy to serve as, I don't want to overkill, the interview process, but if at some point you and Alan aren't available and you're having trouble coordinating schedules with a candidate that looks good, I'm happy to serve as backup.
That would be hugely helpful. I know everyone has other jobs and things like that, and you can't necessarily dictate when you can participate in a local government. So Julie, I very much appreciate that, and I'll try to get an update from Vanessa so that we can have someone managing this. So fabulous.
Have we seen any of the resumes yet? Do we have any sense of what we're getting? Okay.
No, I think, and this goes to a larger discussion that isn't on the agenda, but something that we should think about, is planning and thinking about having a full-time economic development coordinator that does other things for the town, such as a grant writer, someone who helps administer the Community Preservation Act in the town, someone who does economic development, a jack of all trades. And I happen to believe that with the opportunity to have a full-time position, we might get different candidates. And so that's a larger discussion that we may want to have in the future. It's not on the agenda, so I don't want to go there, but that's something that I think we should think about. Next up, it's the Eea Grant Report. Claire, maybe you can give us a couple, a minute or so on where things stand.
Okay, so the first part of this was Paul Pazinski finally got a contract in June, and we worked together to do the complete inventory that was initially planned and was the purpose of his contract. That has been completed. I am in the process of finalizing that. It's pretty extensive. And I think that I did ask Alan to initially see if he knew somebody in his firm that could kind of take a look at that's not his neck of the woods, so to speak. But it's just kind of just making sure that everything is down the right track. So that will be finalized by the end of next week. The next part of this is writing the RFP for the engineering firm to come in and finish up.
Okay.
To the grant with making the recommendations.
Excellent. And obviously there is the town match. Have we been tracking?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, because don't forget, I have a contract as the project manager.
Yeah.
So, and I reported on the match for there was the first quarter reporting, or second quarter reporting. And that contains all of that information.
Fabulous. Yeah, and we're obviously going to schedule some time with members of town staff like Public Works and Planning to
I actually already reached out to them and to give everybody a chance to kind of throw in whatever they wanted. The response, I did meet with the conservation people. I think I told you that a while ago. Ben Smith, who's the chair, was very impressed that by doing this study, we were jump starting and getting more bang for the buck out of the $45,000, having Paul do it at his rate versus having an engineering firm do it at their rate.
Any way we can stretch a grant from the state is fabulous, which kind of should be a model that we have going forward if the EDC does take a lead role in other grants, which is one of the things that I think we would want to do, and one of the benefits that could come along with a full-time EDC coordinator. Obviously, I'm talking about the community one-stop for growth and the possibility of that continuing with the new administration. So, Claire, thank you so much for the update. Are there any questions from the EDC members about the Eea grant?
No, but I just wanted to thank Claire again for all her hard work, and also, Marika and the two of them had helped get all of these grants, and it set an example for the rest of the committees to follow and to demonstrate that we can get additional funding to do right things right. And so well done, Claire, and thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Next up on the agenda is Reliant Medical. I do know that at one point in time earlier this year, members of the EDC met with Reliant Medical. Unfortunately, I could not be there. I think part of that meeting was an outgrowth from a survey sent out by Reliant Medical to people in the town. If I could, is there a member from the EDC who was at that particular meeting to give a brief overview. Chris, were you there?
I was. The part I remember was the key issue is that the lease is running up and they're trying to negotiate with Tony Kwan's executive to reduce the lease rate. And there was a resistance to change that from Mr. Kwan's organization. And I understood or had an understanding that somebody was going to try to talk to Tony Kwan directly, who had a relationship. And I thought somebody on the Board of Selectmen, like Kathy Cook, was going to make that in-person call. Or I don't know, Claire, if you have any recollection of that.
Chris, if I might, Sam Stivers, who is on our Board of Selectmen and an attendee in the audience, he may have been there as well. I did notice that he had his hand raised.
Oh, good, good.
I'm gonna allow him to talk. Sam, I've given you the ability to talk.
Yes, Rob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I can give a quick update. The bottom line is that we actually don't know exactly where that process is at this point. Reliant was not eager to make that process too public in terms of their interest in this property and maybe some other properties in town. But we did follow up. I actually have connected with Tony Kwan's representative, Benny Fung, who was at that meeting. And with the Reliant, actually the Optum senior real estate person, a woman named Erin Helfert, who's actually running the corporate part of that project process. And to expand on Chris's comment, the lease rate was one of the issues, but the primary one seemed to be the space on Newton Street is not ideally configured for their current practice patterns. So they've changed their practice model as a result of some of the changes in healthcare over the last 5 or 10 years. And so they need to reconfigure that space. And Tony has been supportive of some of that, but not as much, I think, as they would have liked. So they're looking at the space characteristics. And the other side of it, too, is that they are still considering other options, apparently, if they can't reach an agreement with Tony. They're considering other possibilities. And again, without going into too much detail, we have connected them with some other possibilities in town that they are in process of pursuing, I'm told. So again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but they are still in the process of looking at their options. They're still, I think, working with Tony and his team to figure out if they can reach a deal there. And the lease has another couple of years to run, I think, or 1.5 years or something like that now. So it's not next week, but they clearly need to plan ahead to be able to get space that's configured in a way that they can use. So again, don't know much of the details, but I and Kathy Cook has also been in contact with folks about that as well. So we're talking to people. Be glad to update people privately about that if you want to connect with me. And Rob, can I offer one more update as well?
Yes.
While I'm
please.
here, as folks may or may not know, the select board actually spent some time recently going through a planning and goal setting exercise. And we came up with a couple dozen different goals, one of which was to support the EDC efforts to retain businesses in Southborough. And we then went through an exercise to allocate point people for that and some support resources for those goals. And that particular one has me and Andrew Dennington assigned to it. And Vanessa Hale is the support person for that. And so we're in the process of developing work plans for those. And Rob, I will follow up with you directly to talk about how that process goes forward, and then we can coordinate with other EDC members around that as well. But we're trying to identify some actual action plans, things that people can do to move forward, ways to measure, et cetera, on a variety of these things, ranging from some infrastructure projects to some internal process projects, et cetera, that I think will allow us to get some interesting things done over the next year. So that's where we are in that one, and I will follow up with you. So as I learn more about Reliant, I will pass it along. But again, they're sort of grinding away out there trying to figure out what they want to do, and they're not sharing their detailed plans with any of us, but I think we will continue to reinforce, as we have. If there are things we can do to be helpful for that process, we will certainly do our best.
Yeah, Sam.
Sam?
Thank you very much for that. And I do know that in corporate real estate for businesses, 1 year is kind of to them the next day. So the fact that they're 2 years out and we're developing that relationship now and having those conversations now, I think puts Southborough in a good position. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that the participation of the Board of Selectmen in that meeting shows the company and Tony Kwan, the landlord, that we are a united front trying to do what's best for our residents and try to keep a important business here. Now, Julie, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, just real quick, that's huge news and potentially very not good news if we are, risking losing Reliant in that location, just because one, it leaves a big hole that would be hard to fill, as we've seen with some of these, especially a building like that seems sort of, set up specifically. It works well as a medical center. If you've been inside it, it employs a lot of people in our town. It, many, if not most people I know, go there for some medical services. So that's huge. I'm really hopeful we can keep them in town. I'm curious as to what other spaces are being considered. I'm assuming they're Route 9 locations, which makes me a little nervous. But whatever we can do to keep them in town, I think is great. I'm a little surprised that they so boldly asked for a rent reduction, but I guess more power to them. But yeah, I think we should definitely stay on top of that and stay in communications. And I echo Robin saying, I think it's great that the board's been proactive and involved.
Yep. Yes,
Chris?
I'm sorry, Chris.
I just want to second what Sam and Julie said. It is terrific that the board is taking a proactive role in this and seeing that the leadership of the town is concerned and getting involved is critical to our economic well-being of the town. Sam, great summary. And I want to also say that getting closer to the search process on behalf of our customer, which is Reliant. I know there are people like Billy DePietri who have several buildings in town, and they're certainly have a capability to respond to those kind of leads or give us better guidance if we need it. So I say bravo to Sam and the board and the example you're setting for the rest of the committees that we have to be proactive about the businesses that come to our community and help them grow and prosper. Thank you.
Yeah, retention is a key thing. So, there are many different reasons as to why outreach to a business can come up. I think the fact that there was a survey sent out by Reliant to residents kind of brought this forward a little bit sooner than perhaps, talking with a real estate broker. But that just goes to show that we as an EDC must be vigilant. We should try to have as many conversations with businesses as possible. And that's a great way of transitioning to the next discussion item, which I put on there as EDC goals. And quite frankly, it might appear a little bit vague. It might be like, well, doesn't the EDC already have goals?
Excuse me, Rob.
Yes, we do. Oh, I'm sorry.
Rob, sorry, this is Sam. Could I add one more point before we go on here?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Just to reinforce Julie's point, Reliant actually made it very clear at all the levels that their strong preference is to stay in their current location. So it's not that they are, out looking just because for some crazy reason the current space is terrible or whatever for their needs. They're very eager to do that. They've actually negotiated with Tony about the configuration issues and exchanged some different proposals about it. So they're working that one hard because moving for them operationally is pretty disruptive. And from a customer satisfaction standpoint, their customers would be disrupted as well there. So they're eager to strike a deal. and I don't want to misrepresent that in any way, but it's prudent, as you're suggesting, that they're going to have to do something in short time from the real estate perspective, and they got to be prepared for any eventuality here if the negotiations don't deliver what they need. So that's what they're looking for.
Most
Sam, great.
definitely. And, you know, quite honestly, it's not the type of thing where they can close it on a Friday and open it on a Monday. From a cost standpoint, they're going to have to actually have 2 operations open at the same time so that they can transition people, they can transition the equipment, they can do all of that. So there's a cost associated with that. And I think one of the things that we as the EDC and the town can do is make sure that they understand that we are an asset and an amenity for those conversations that can still happen, in addition to some of those other property owners who are out there. So.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Rob, just one footnote. I don't know if anybody knows this, but 60,000 people visit Reliant Medical. That was the number they gave me a year or two ago that visit Reliant Medical coming to our town. It's an enormous number, and it shows you how high value that facility is. So, and again, thanks, Sam, for the additional update.
No, thanks for that, Chris. Agenda item, EDC goals. One of our goals is business attraction, business retention, business marketing, making sure that people know about that. You know, some of our other goals are applying for grants, but I think what I would like to do, and I put this on the agenda simply as a bit of a placeholder and a request out to the committee members. There are some goals that perhaps aren't verbalized as much as possible. As an example, we have multiple times had presentations by the Trails Committee, where the Trails Committee talked about ways in which to connect the downtown to the trails and those people who walk through the town. We don't necessarily always verbalize that the coordination with committees like this can have an economic development benefit. And going forward, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to spend at least one EDC meeting just talking about those random goals that we as a committee can try working towards, some of them that may have perhaps gone by the wayside. One of our goals in the past was getting the mixed use in the downtown. We got there. So that can be crossed off. The next part is, well, actually seeing that development happen. So it's kind of changing those goals and identifying them. I suppose I'm leaving that open-ended right now, and we'll open it up to the committee, but perhaps ask the EDC members to do a little bit of homework and kind of outside of the box thinking about some of the goals that might be important to them as members and the way to integrate that into our work and those things that once we have a coordinator on board, we ask them to do. So I'm just throwing that out there to the EDC to see if they think that that might be a wise idea and whether or not they'd like to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I feel like we were very focused on a couple of big goals, and we got those accomplished, and we had some really big wins. And then in the past, 6 months or whatever, and then we kind of were trying to refocus, and then we lost Marika, and then it was summer. And so we're without a coordinator. It's, harder to corral the cats. And we're also sort of just coming off of a long sustained period of really being focused on a couple goals. So I 100%, especially with hopefully a soon coming, new coordinator, we really absolutely, I'm feeling like we're a little bit, we've got the grant that Claire is working on. We have some other loose ideas. We just wrapped up the plan for the master plan for the town going forward. So we need to take a revised and refreshed look at that and make sure our goals are aligning with that. So 100%, I think September would be a great time to sort of reconstitute and figure out what our goals are. And you mentioned the downtown, like taking it to the next level and finding, okay, so we've got this, now what? I actually did, I don't know, Chris, I think you know Howard Grossman. Remember him?
Yes.
Yeah, so I did reach out to him. I don't have an email address for him though. I only, for some reason, I only was able to connect with him through LinkedIn. I did reach out to him several months ago. I did not hear back, but I also heard that I think maybe his wife had passed away not long before that. So, but I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he was one who at least several years ago seemed really interested in potentially, being involved with downtown should the opportunity arise, should the zoning laws change. He's a Southborough resident. He does, a wide scale of projects. So he does some bigger ones, but he does smaller ones too. So at least, 5 years ago when I talked to him about it, he was very, very interested in seeing the downtown zoning laws change and maybe being involved. So he is someone I want to connect with because I agree, we can pat ourselves on the back all day for having the law change, but if there's no actual development there, then what's the point? We worked really hard for that. So, but 100% agree. I think our next meeting should be all about goals. Also on the next agenda, I would love to hear an update on the rest of the downtown road work development, and maybe on the parcel 51 or for whatever, I'm sorry, not enough copy today, whatever the parcel number is it 51 behind the pizza shop, and and what's going on with the railroad, and finishing up the rest of that street from the DPW perspective. I'd love to figure out if we can get an update on that too.
Yeah, maybe see, this is what I did right now is I started looking for Marika on the screen and saying, hey, Marika, maybe you can do outreach to DPW and invite them to our next meeting, but that she is no longer here. So yeah, maybe I'll see what I can do.
It's only like 8 o'clock at night for her, so we could probably just loop her in.
Yeah, right. We could. But yeah, no, I do want to spend a little bit more time on some of those goals, the short term, the long term, and the medium term. I think, and this is, as the chair, I'm given a certain level of flexibility. There is going to be in January the opening up of the community One Stop for Growth again. And, we should be thinking about what we're applying for, if we can apply for anything, and thinking about how it's written so that we can get more money from the state. The fact that there are some communities out there who are getting hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars for economic development projects is something that I'd like Southborough to try to see if we can get even more. So that's at least one of the goals that I was hoping to add. So next up on the agenda, and this perhaps was an outgrowth from what Alan had said to me. There's a special town meeting coming up this September. From my part, I couldn't think of any draft EDC warrant articles, but Alan might have had a couple of ideas. Do we want to, from an EDC perspective, think about aiming for a warrant article this fall, or do we say, no, we're going to take a low-key approach at this September, and then if we had something bigger, we aim for the spring? I'm opening it up to the committee because I could not, for the life of me, think of a warrant article that I would want to put on there.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by a warrant article?
Yes. When we did the zoning change in the downtown, that was a warrant article. when the town chooses to allocate funds for the building of the public safety building, that's a warrant article. If we were to conceivably make a request for a full-time position as an EDC coordinator, that might come through as a warrant article. It's basically something that would be voted on by town meeting to kind of change the town.
Okay, well, I mean, pursuant to the previous discussion about the nature of the position, the right position, like, it doesn't sound like we're fully baked enough to really put that. So I can't do anything else either. So, okay, I just wanted to be clear.
Also,
Yeah,
don't we have
no.
to submit, usually isn't the warrant article deadline like a long time before the meeting? Have we even passed?
I think it's coming up in perhaps, and I will admit, I don't know the exact date on that. What I do know is that I had put this agenda was the same agenda we had on the 12th, so we may have missed that. Hold on one second. I'm trying to find the email from Mark Purple. My apologies. I can't find it at my fingertips, but I don't think we're in the right position to do it. No, the select board will be closing the warrant on September 7th.
Yeah, I agree. Even with the time, I don't think we're fully baked enough. And I don't think it makes sense to throw something on there when we're just about to go through this reconstitution process where we figure out what our goals are. I'm sure there's stuff, but yeah, anything that requires money, a new position, anything like that would have to go through town meeting. Anything that's required to be voted on would have to go on the warrant. But yeah, and also, you know, we've been a part of this process enough times to know that it's not great as far as getting support to just throw something on there that's either half baked or you know, or that we don't have time to sort of really work through amongst ourselves and make sure it's done correctly, and also enough time to explain to the public who have to vote on it. So I don't think it makes sense to do anything right now.
I think that is that's kind of my opinion as well. And I know I think, as I said, one of the EDC goals could be a full-time position, and we'd want to have a strategy. And so if that does require a town meeting warrant, we'd want to make sure that it's lined up and we garner support from potentially the other boards and the select boards for that stuff. So I don't think that's something that requires a vote. I just think we're not going to take any action on drafting a warrant. Once again, as chair, and what I will say this: anyone who wants to take over as chair right now, just let me know. I'll step aside and let someone else handle these meetings. But as chair, clean energy and sustainability is something that I believe is important to not only the Massachusetts economy, but the quality of life for residents. And I think that there are clean energy initiatives out there that we perhaps might not be taking a lead role on. In full disclosure, there's a financing program by the organization that I work for, Mass Development, which can help property owners improve their properties with clean energy improvements. That's something that I would like the EDC to consider. I would recuse myself from that. I think at one point in time, I had mentioned the idea of solar car canopies in the parking lot of town buildings, and whether or not, from a holistic standpoint, looking at every school and town-owned properties, whether or not we might be able to do that. Michael, I know that that was a consideration at the public safety building, but because it was such a small footprint, it didn't make fiscal sense for a clean energy provider. Thinking about the town as a whole, maybe we might be able to get someone interested in that. I would also say that, there are discussions happening upon some of our schools, what's going to happen with them. And all of those schools have large flat roofs, which if we really want to put our money where our mouths are and talk about sustainability and things like that, we should be pursuing that as much as possible, even if it's running a parallel track with some of the people from the town. So I think clean energy outreach, clean energy programs, and things like that can and should be a goal of the EDC. And I'm actually going to do some outreach to those people I know within that field who might be able to advise us on how we could achieve those goals of solar on town buildings, solar car canopies in our parking lots, so that we can at least take a step, even if it doesn't lead anywhere. So that is me up on the soapbox for that. Opening it up to the committee.
Yeah, Rob, I just mentioned I have a little bit of a background from my career in renewable energy, so I'm happy to ride shotgun on your conversations. I know enough to be dangerous, not enough to be useful, but it's probably more than the average person might know, and I have an interest in it. So happy to help with that.
I'd love that. I'd love that help. Now, not to talk out of school, but do you know of, in your experience with clean energy, do you know of other municipalities that perhaps have taken a more proactive approach that we could maybe mirror and talk to about stuff like this?
I can find out. I think typically usually it's a private company that will come to the town. And like I know, for example, a company I work for, we own the solar on top of Lincoln Sudbury High School.
Yeah.
Just as a example of a small distributed generation site. And I'm sure we went to them as opposed to the other way around, or we bought it from somebody who had developed it for them. So it's usually the private sector reaching out. So I'm surprised it hasn't happened more, but you do see a lot of solar in town, just not necessarily on commercial buildings. So I don't know of an example, but I could probably find out.
Okay, no, that's fabulous. Yeah, it's I'd like the help, and I think it's something that can be beneficial to the town. And so, okay, great. So those are the discussion items. I don't think we had anything that required any votes. I'm going to open it up to a public comment now. And I think the only person who was an attendee was Sam, had to sign off. So don't have any public comment. Next up on the agenda is the administrative, which is the approval of minutes for May 27th, 2022. Claire had distributed those. Are there any discussion or comments on those minutes? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
This is Chris. I so approve.
Second.
Okay, so I got Chris making the motion, Julie seconding it. So I'm going to go around for the approval of minutes as I see people on the screen. Chris,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Rob Anderson, yes, unanimous. Fabulous. We're keeping this efficient, which I love. The next up is the adjourning of the meeting. The one thing that I would also like to, end the meeting with once again, thanking Karen for her volunteering for the EDC. I would like to also let the EDC know that if there are agenda items that people would like to add, please let me know. And we'd add them, we'd open it up for discussion, because I think there are lots of things that we can do as a committee to make the town better. So because it's a Friday in the summertime and it looks beautiful outside, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Rob, can I just jump in and say
Oh, yes.
one thing? I'm new here, so I don't have a role yet, but if anybody needs anything and they need want to delegate, like you wanted to delegate to or reach out to Marika, you were joking, but do you want me to reach out to the DPW, ask them to come to September meeting? So feel free to throw anything my way if anybody needs me to do anything.
Okay, fabulous. Yeah, I might take you up on that. I think one of the things that I have discovered, because Marika's not here, is that identifying dates for meetings is somewhat tough. Zoom makes it a whole lot easier. However, I would like to get back to meeting in person at some point in time, which means kids' soccer games, work meetings in the evening days of the week. So I think I would like some help in outreach to the DPW. I just think we have to have a more firm date before we do that. And I'll send an email out to people soon to schedule the next one.
All right, just reach out if you want me to kind of corral and get meetings and organize dates and do all that email stuff. If you need any time, just feel free.
I think there's been one, because we're sort of starting the new schedule. So people who have kids and stuff, their schedule might be different now. I know like John Wood, for example, started a new job. So he used to be able to be available for this time slot. Now he said these morning meetings are hard for him. So maybe just starting a general, because just for Karen's background, and then I'm going to let everyone go. But we've sort of for a while been alternating between like an 8:15 Friday morning meeting and like a 7:30 Thursday night meeting. Sort of going back and forth to try to get as many people as possible, but it might be worthwhile to sort of start and say, okay, now with some new members, some people have had situations change, what works best for people. Definitely I find it easier, I think most people do, to kind of have a consistent, like it's the second Tuesday of every month at 8:15 or whatever it is. So people can kind of mostly plan ahead. Sometimes it has to be moved for whatever reason, but yeah, maybe just sort of seeing generally what works better for people as far as morning, evening, and certain days of the week, and going from there.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Yeah, I do know that, and I'm going to throw Chris out there under the bus a little bit. As someone who's retired, Chris has all of the flexibility in the world, don't you?
Baby fits.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. There's nothing like jealousy and envy, but
right, exactly. You could see through me very well.
Your-
Right there.
your day is
yes.
coming. Yeah, sure. I'm glad to help.
Yeah, we'll get something out so
Do
we
you
can
want me to help?
at least have a little bit more consistent. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going as I see them. Chris,
Yes.
Julie,
Yep.
Matt,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Fabulous. Everyone, thank you so much. Enjoy the good weather and the summertime, and you'll see an email from me about next meetings and next steps and scheduling things. So thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.